The author, most recently, of the novel The House of Broken Angels loves poetry and avoids objectivist fiction. I run screaming when I see an Ayn Rand book creeping up the alley looking for victims. What books are on your nightstand? It's a siege. If we can extend the image of nightstand to include the floor and the chest of drawers across the room, we might be approaching my unfortunate bibliomania and occasional trashophilia. What do we mean by books? Because every time there's a David Bowie themed magazine from Britain, I can't help myself. That's on the floor, you see. However, on the nightstand, I am more respectable and proudly keep my Dylan Jones biography of Dear Bowie. Along with Natasha Trethway's Thrall, the complete poems of A.R. Emmons, both massive volumes, Neruda's Odes, a few Harlan Ellison collections and the luminous wonder that is Lion Dollenhock's Mozart's Starling, which we stumbled on in Strasbourg last summer and could not resist. All of this will be swept away in a joyous frenzy once I get my hands on the new James Lee Burke novel. And maybe I'm just saying a Hellraiser comic. Right beside my copy of Fire and Fury. Because Pinhead is surely coming for our president, and I want to be sure I know what's in store for him. I like to think that poetry outweighs demons on my nightstand. What is the last great book you read? Mark Twain's Roughing It. What's the best classic novel you recently read for the first time? Pedro Páramo, by Juan Rulfo. In the original Spanish. It's one of those guilt books so many Mexican lit lovers know they should read, but flee kind of like English speakers do with Under the Volcano, a personal favorite. I was always afraid of the Spanish, too hard, the chorus of doubt cried. I was certain that my father's ghost would appear, smoking his old Pall Malls, and mock me for not understanding Rulfo's brilliance. Well, Dad, I didn't. Not all of it. But let's get this straight, I'm just gearing up for a final go at Moby Dick. I'm sure that St. Cormac will bless me. What is your favorite book no one else has heard of? This is an unfair question. I want to lodge a complaint. I love books with titles like, How Do You Spank a Porcupine, Arnie, The Darling Starling, or The Bat in My Pocket. These books I hold as my secrets, they're like lost kittens I bring home. Some of them grow up to be Wolverines, but nevertheless I love them and care for them. Here are 3, out of scores of excellent titles: Under My Elm, by David Grayson, The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating, by Elizabeth Tova Bailey, and When Wanderers Cease to Roam, by Vivian Swift. When do you read? I read most often in bed as part of my attempted sleep ritual. But I spend a lot of time reading on planes and in hotels, too. My eyes are a constant struggle for me, bad vision getting worse. So the act of reading grows more difficult, yet more precious. I think it is becoming part of my devotions. I often tell students that writing is prayer. Well, ditto reading. What moves you most in a work of literature? The spike of revelation entering me. When I see us anew. See the world more brightly. When I couldn't have written that. When I laugh out loud or cry. It's hard to get me there with your typing, friends. I would like to return to a less scabbed over professional writer era. How astounding it was to discover Thomas McGuane and feel the world transformed forever after. I am always open to the convulsive transformation. Bring on the duende. Which genres do you especially enjoy reading? And which do you avoid? I am addicted to poetry, but the truth is I cannot pass up a good hard-boiled mystery. I run screaming when I see an Ayn Rand book creeping up the alley looking for victims. How do you like to read? Paper or electronic? One book at a time, or several simultaneously. Books are like chocolate. Can't eat just one. I flip back and forth, or interrupt one for another, but feel codependent to that abandoned book and mount a heroic ride to save it against all odds after I'm done cheating on it with Dave Robichaux or Mary Oliver. Oh, and since you asked, paper. How do you organize your books? Alphabetically. Though the collection spreads like a flood and then all bets are off. All the poetry is in one place. The rest are in many shelves all over the house. What kind of a reader were you as a child? Voracious. Word drunk. I came out of Tijuana in that era. It wasn't easy to find books. My mom was a spectacularly misplaced New York City socialite fallen on magical realism. Strange times indeed. But once she got me into the United States, she took up arms against her newfound poverty and bestowed on me her greatest gift, aside from that Stingray bike in 1965, a library card. It took us 2 bus rides to get to downtown San Diego from the barrio where we lived. It was a sacred ritual, Woolworths for a hot dog and a visit with the pet parakeets and goldfish. Then away to the public library, where I maxed out my kid card every Saturday. I thought I was rich. I was rich. I never stopped haunting libraries all through my boyhood. Imagine my shock when I discovered Ambrose Bierce. But what really hypnotized me was Ray Bradbury. I was the border rat expert in Bradbury. He was the author who taught me to reread stuff as often as I wanted. Double your pleasure, as the commercial said back then, double your fun. I felt that all would be revealed in his stories. You're organizing a literary dinner party. Which 3 writers, dead or alive, do you invite? I would invite Lin-Manuel, because Lin-Manuel Miranda. And Mark Twain, because he needs to hear some rap. Guest of honor, Ursula K. Le Guin, forever. When the boys get too rambunctious, I will just bask in those looks she gave, and I would give anything to hear her say, "Oh, come on one last time." What do you plan to read next? What have you got?